Hello and welcome to the Pinwheels pregame show. I am Mitchell Kaminsky. The White Sox still suck, but the show must go on. Let's get into it. First off, this show is sponsored by, still get that wrong. This show is sponsored by Homage. You scan that QR code, and that'll take you to the site. Pick yourself out a shirt. They got White Sox shirts, Bears shirts, Cubs shirts, you name it. They probably have it. They even got some racing shirts. If you watched Daytona this weekend, you were in for a treat. Harrison Burton pulled off the upset. Scan Homage. See if you can find yourself a nice NASCAR shirt. All right, let's get into it. White Sox made a handful of moves yesterday. One in particular had the fan base up in arms. The White Sox decided to recall Brian Ramos from AAA. He was having a pretty good stint. You know, he came up for a brief stint, had 15 games with the White Sox, didn't hit all that well, but was able to flash the lever at third base. So, you know, there was some things to build off of there. He played some pretty good defense. This is a guy, a homegrown kid that the White Sox had. They signed him in their international signing class a couple years ago. He's starting to work his way through the system. He's showing some potential. So this is the type of season when the team's this bad, you want to get these kids reps. So they brought him up, got him a little taste of major league action, and then he made that jump from AA too. So it was kind of a surprise at the time to kind of give him an idea what to work on. So he's since been moved to AAA. White Sox call him back up earlier this week. So it's like, okay, September's coming around. We're trudging towards the 1962 Mets record for most losses in a season. You know, let's let these kids play. One day later, though, the White Sox decide, yeah, actually, he was only going to be up for one game. We're sending him back down to AAA. We're going to waste an option on him. And this kind of explains where all of the White Sox free agency money is going, because they're spending it all on these plane tickets back and forth from Chicago to Charlotte to shuttle these guys back and forth for no apparent reason. Although we do know Jerry's probably paying for coach tickets on Spirit Airlines, so it's probably not too expensive. But he gets sent back down after one game. Kind of a pointless move, if you ask me, in favor of Jacob Amaya. Now, Jacob Amaya was just signed by the White Sox earlier this week. 25-year-old, about to turn 26 this month. Not exactly setting the world on fire. He was previously with the Astros. He played one game for the Astros, got one at bat with them. He doesn't have a huge major league profile. Over his 7-year minor league career, it's about a 250 hitter. So he's not exactly setting the world on fire, but he fits a common theme for players the White Sox have acquired. He plays pretty good defense. He's kind of versatile. People like his glove. That's who Chris Getz has been allegedly trying to target. The defense didn't improve, but they were saying in the offseason, that's the goal. We're going to improve the defense. So let's bring in this guy, Jacob Amaya. Let's see what he can do. Now, Amaya is out of minor league options after this season. So I don't have an issue with them bringing him in and giving him a little bit of playing time. At this point, the White Sox just kind of throwing shit at the wall, seeing what sticks. So I feel like Amaya is another one of those. Problem it really hasn't worked out all that well. And there's a reason he's been in baseball 7 years and he hasn't gotten a ton of opportunities. He's not a huge impact bat. He's not an impact bat. This year, he's only hitting around 220 in the minor leagues. He's about a 250 hitter overall. He's got 62 homers, 331 RBIs in 7 seasons as a pro. He does have a 12.3% walk rate through his career, so he can get on base. He had 70 walks last season, 2022, 81 walks. So there is some plate discipline, plays good defense. He's out of options at the end of the year. You want to bring him up, fine. But why are we wasting an option in Brian Ramos' time? Like, that made no sense to me. Like, why bring this kid up and then send him down? And they didn't even play him in that game that he was there. Like, that's just stupid. That's just stupid. Speaking of stupid stuff the White Sox do, they've shown that they're willing to play shorthanded for no reason. Like when we had Eloy earlier this year, and he was clearly hurt, but they didn't want to put him on the IL. So they kept him on the roster and just played shorthanded. Like, if you know that you're just waiting for this Amaya to come up, why the hell are why not just do shorthand, play shorthand again? I don't advise it, but it's stupid stuff like this that the White Sox do. Playing Amaya at the expense of Ramos also, like, I get why they're trying to play him, but Ramos clearly has a longer runway with this team. Like, between the two, like, which one do you see being part of the future? You can argue neither of them, but Ramos has a better chance. I would think you'd be giving him more opportunities instead of wasting an option on him. But Amaya, once again, he fits this theme of defense that the White Sox have liked to bring in. It's also another Chris Getz acquisition. And, you know, Chris Getz, fix my hair for a second. Chris Getz, I don't think has gotten enough flack for truly how bad of a job he's done this season. Now, it's not all his fault. He inherited a bad manager, and he gave the guy a chance. The infrastructure around him not great. This is a total rebuild. They have to put some more pieces in place. So I'm not pinning it all on Getz. But I think he's gotten a little bit more of a pass because if you look at a lot of his moves, more often than not, they have not worked out. So let's take a look, specifically over the offseason. And you want to look at why the White Sox are as bad as they are. Now, as I mentioned, not all of his fault, but let's not give him a pass either. Here's a look at a graphic that was in the broadcast the other night. This is all of the moves that are acquisitions that Chris Getz made this offseason. And we're going to go through these one by one to see if they worked out. Now, I'm going to go with the ones that I feel like worked out first because that's a much shorter list and that will not take as much time. Fetty was very good. He had the highest WAR in the American League for pitchers at the All-Star break. You're able to flip him, get some pieces back. So that was a good acquisition. But he fumbled it by trading him for pennies on the dollar. I thought he had a pretty robust market because unlike most of these pitchers, it was not a whole lot of teams selling. He was affordable. Everyone could have afforded him. Garrett Crochet, he wants an extension. That he's going to cost a lot of prospects. Eric Fetty, any team could be in on him. A team like the Brewers could be in on him. A team like the Cardinals, as we saw. A team like the Dodgers. Like every team that was in contention could have used an Eric Fetty because he was cheap, under team control, and he'd been putting up numbers. And Getz got a very underwhelming return. One of the guys he got back, Albert Albertus, is on the IL for the rest of the season. The other guy, Miguel Vargas, we've seen, and a Shy Sox fan, Mike, I'm sure most of you see him on Twitter. He wrote a really good article kind of documenting his struggles. I recommend you go read that on Sports Mockery, sportsmockery.com. But he's been awful since coming to the White Sox. He really wasn't playing all that well with the Dodgers either. He was a headliner in that trade. And then we also included Michael Kopech, who we just kind of threw in there, gave to the Dodgers in that trade as well, who's been excellent since leaving. So we sold them for pennies on the dollar. So that was a good acquisition, but then he fumbled it with the trade. Paul DeYoung, I thought was another good signing. At the time, I didn't like it. He led the team in home runs before he got traded to the Royals. Able to get something back for him. He's kind of a one-year rental, bridge from Montgomery. Okay, fine. That one worked out well. Nicky Lopez, you kind of got what you signed for. He's played games for him. He's hitting, as well as Nicky Lopez will. He's around the 240s. Fine, whatever. Like, he's been consistent. He hustles. Like, that was not a bad signing. Nothing wrong with that. Outside of those guys, though, it's pretty ugly. Let's get through it. Michael Soroka, number one. Right now, he's currently on the IL. They thought they could kind of rehash him. This is all courtesy of Baseball Savant. But let's look at his ERA here. 5.23 ERA. Pretty bad as a starter. He was supposed to help him eat some innings. Now he's been moved to the bullpen. There's a whole lot. If you look at the expected ERA, 5.01, when he's near the bottom of the league. Expected batting average, he's getting shelled. Not drawing a whole lot of strikeouts either. He's walking a lot of guys, a 13.1% walk rate. It's been ugly. That signing has not worked out, and now he's currently injured. John Brebbia. Boy, another one. For the bullpen that's been pretty bad this season, 6.29 ERA. And that, if you want to explain why they have so many losses like they do, now obviously this team wasn't winning a division, but he was supposed to be one of the better relievers they brought in. To at least give him some quality innings in high leverage situations, it's been pretty ugly. Strikeout numbers have been there, which is all fine and well. The problem is, guys are hitting him hard. There's a whole lot of blue in this Baseball Savant page. Guess where he is right now? DFA'd. He got DFA'd this week. So that signing, another one, chalk it up, didn't work out. Let's go to Steven Wilson. Steven Wilson, he was included in that big trade for Dylan Cease. Another guy in the bullpen that identified, hey, you know what? He actually pitched pretty well in San Diego. You look at his last two seasons, sub-4 ERA. That's respectable. He even picked up a save in 2022. 5.71 ERA this year with the White Sox. He's been sent down a bunch too. Hasn't pitched enough inning to qualify for a lot of these MLB percentile rankings. But, the ERA, it speaks for itself. 5.71 and expected batting average against him, 250. So not great. Tim Hill, he's with the Yankees right now. Actually, since going to the Yankees, he's pitched pretty good for the Yankees. 2.27 ERA with the White Sox. That wasn't the case. Near 6 ERA, 5.87 ERA. Guess where he was right now? He didn't even make the full season with the White Sox. As we mentioned, he was with the Yankees. He was DFA'd. That graphic got messed up, but you get the idea. Shane Druhan. This is another guy Chris Getz brought in. He was supposed to help the bullpen. Guy from the Red Sox. Didn't make it quite all the way there. He did land on the IL. He was having some shoulder problems. He was rehabbing in AAA Charlotte. But in the minors, numbers weren't all that great either. Only had 11 innings pitched, but in those 11 innings, 7.36 ERA. Guess what happened to him? DFA'd. Boy, you're starting to see a common trend with all these guys that made the opening day roster that Chris Getz picked up. All right, Chris Flexen. Boy, whole lot of blue here. That would be nice if you got the Democratic National Convention, but your baseball savant page, not so much. Another guy supposed to eat innings, and look, like while he was with Colorado, he was never a world beater. But this is a guy they were talking about midway through the season. Like, hey, you know what? Maybe we can flip him for something. It's been ugly. He's not striking out anyone. Expected ERA, 4.84. So actually not a terrible expected ERA compared to his actual ERA, which is 5.34. But fastball run value, not great. Breaking ball run value, not great. Off-speed run value, not great. He's getting hit. Actually, not. He's not getting hit too bad. But the biggest issue I see here, I mean, besides the fact that he's given up a lot of runs, look at that ground ball percentage, 36.7. That ranks 19th in the MLB. When you're in a hitter-friendly park like Guaranteed Rate Field, you want to keep the ball on the ground. He's not doing that. But they need guys to eat innings. So he has not been DFA'd yet, but arguably if he was on a contending team, he probably would have been at this point. And the other thing is, too, they need guys right now to eat some innings. Problem is he's getting shelled so much, he's usually not making it past the fifth inning, so that's been pretty useless. Brandon Shoemake, another guy, he still in the minors with them. There's a reason he's still in the minors with them. Sox have not DFA'd him yet either, but, the stint, the White Sox clearly saw enough. A 125 batting average in 67 plate appearances. I mean, there's not much to talk about there. The defense wasn't particularly great either. Look at the range down here, the OAA, -2 for outs above average. So, one of those throw-in pieces who was going to get let go by the Braves. And this is what we talked about in that Aaron Bummer trade, because he came over there along with Michael Soroka in that package deal. And everyone's like, oh, man, look at all these guys we got for Aaron Bummer. Quantity is not quality. Most of the guys were going to be DFA'd. That's what happened to him. All right, this is Kevin Pillar. Kevin Pillar, we picked up this offseason. He's supposed to be a veteran that helped this team. Didn't go too well for him. And we have right here, 160 batting average, 290 on base percentage, 360 slugging. It was ugly. He only lasted 17 games before DFA'd. Another guy DFA'd that he picked up this offseason. And, funny enough, actually, if we go back here and you take a look at with the Angels, he's actually been pretty good since leaving the White Sox. So another guy like Kopech that since leaving the Sox, he's been a lot better. All right, Martin Maldonado. Well, we already know what happened to him. He got DFA'd as well. It wasn't pretty. You take a look, the defense was horrible. The bat was well documented. It was one of the worst hitting catchers I've ever seen. One of the worst hitters in the MLB, period. Another guy, DFA'd. Dominic Fletcher, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he has had some injury issues. But let's be, and the White Sox giving him inconsistent playing time, sending him up and down. But let's be honest, I mean, he's had some good defensive plays. I think the defense has been pretty sharp. But even then, when you see he's made some highlight reel plays, even then, his range value in the outfield, the range hasn't been great. He does have a good arm, but as you can see, not necessarily lighting the world on fire. He's passed the eye test in a couple situations. He made, like I said, he's robbed a couple home runs, made a couple diving catches. There is some potential there, but offensively, it's been a struggle. Expecting batting average 244, expected slugging percentage even worse, 322. Barrel percentage way down low. If he did qualify, he hasn't been qualified enough. So we won't call him a complete bust yet. He's still 26. His rookie season was last year and inconsistent playing time with the White Sox, but that was the guy they identified that they really wanted out of that trade. They could have also had Jake McCarthy, who's been playing pretty good for the Diamondbacks right now. Fletcher, not so much. It seemed like another whiff from Chris Getz. We'll go. But yeah, I mean, you kind of go, we'll pull this back up. Take a look at all these guys here. We'll go back to the top. This is all the guys. 3 of them, you could argue, have worked out. So you want to know why the White Sox are as bad as they are? That's a major reason why. Because Chris Getz has not done a very good job identifying guys to come in. And, that's what was so frustrating. Because, I kind of understood when he was pitching it, what the vision was. But the thing is, he's brought in a lot of guys that were, kind of similar to him during his career. Hey, they're versatile. They can play good defense in theory, but none of them hit all that well. And the defense hasn't been that great either. We got Andy in the comments. Shout out Andy. He's here almost every week. Appreciate you, Andy. The guys who are doing fine with other clubs probably needed structure and real goals. Instead, they got Pedro. And that was a big problem, too. I think, at least under Grady, They are showing some fight. It's still a small sample size. I don't know if Grady is the solution long term with the roster they have, but like you have seen that this team, they are still giving effort. And that's the thing we talked about last week, how I'm evaluating this team the rest of the way is effort and energy. So you kind of, they are still showing effort, which we like. The error margin for error is small though. So it's just a matter of playing clean baseball. Got to show a little bit more progress in the fundamentally clean baseball, but still a lot of mistakes happening there. But it's just like, we Pedro got a lot of the flack, deservedly so. He was not a great manager, obviously. The record speaks for itself. But Chris Getz deserves a lot of blame for why this team is so bad. Like at the end of the day, he brought in a lot of these guys to supplement the roster. In a division like this, like realistically, like even in this rebuild, there's no reason they couldn't win 70 games. If these prospects and everything are as good as they're saying, and a lot of borderline fringe players. And I think, it should have been telling when we were saying all offseason, and I'll admit, I was one of the people saying it. It's like, look, they got all these hungry veterans. They're trying to stay in the show. They're going to be giving max effort. Well, there's a reason they're still trying to stay in the show, because they just simply weren't that good. There's a lot of guys that no other teams wanted that weren't that good. They had to sign with the White Sox. So, I mean, it is what it is. One of the guys that didn't make the opening day roster, they also had a Tommy Pham. You could argue that one worked out because they were able to kind of include him in that trade, but they didn't get all that much back for him. So really all he did too, and he didn't hit bad for the White Sox, and yes, they were able to flip him, but he was included in that massive, he was kind of a throw-in. Like Fetty and Kopech were the two headliners of that deal. And if we're being honest, considering how, especially when you look at Kopech's resume, they sold both of those guys for pennies on the dollar. Like that was not a good trade. It wasn't. They look at how Vargas has been. And I'm not selling all my Vargas stock yet. Obviously, it's a tough situation for the kid coming from the Dodgers to here, but I mean, there's a reason the Dodgers were so quick to trade. Like they played Getz in those negotiations like a cheap clarinet. That was like a guy with a poker hand that they all could see. It was like Kim Kardashian when she was playing poker, that one viral clip where she had the reflective glasses, everyone could see their hand. Everyone knew his hand. It screamed rookie general manager. I hope he can turn it around. I mean, I haven't hated all of his moves. I think there's some personnel decisions. Barfield had a pretty good resume when they brought him in. It's the assistant GM. Brian Bannister does look like he's doing some interesting things with the pitching staff, but there's been more negatives than positives. He does deserve a lot of the blame. Now, the guy that deserves the most blame, Jerry Reinsdorf, obviously. This pissed me off. I saw this on Twitter earlier this week. We'll bring this back up. This is from Jack from Live. He tweeted this the other night. Was told we could not enter the stadium with these shirts by gate security. The owner sits in the box and doesn't want to see them. Security guard said. Had to button it up or turn it inside out to get in. Unreal. Now, if you can't see the shirts, they're from Obvious Shirts. Our friend Joe, he's been on the show before. Mostly known for his Cub shirts, but he's got a lot of good shirts. It's the Chris Getz quote that he had before the season that says, "I don't like our team." There's not a lot to like. I think it's a funny shirt. But we've seen this time and time again. During the Crosstown series, too, there was the big thing. We kind of talked about this show. Someone tried to bring in the banner, sell the team. And the security guards are instructed to confiscate that thing. The one guy posted the video. He had his banner. Security guy tried to rip it out of his hand for like multiple innings until the game ended. Now, I'm not saying these men and women that work the security at these games, they do have an important job. They do. Same with the parking thing. Like, yeah, they'd have an important job. But that doesn't seem like the type of job where you're like, how do I work? I feel like most of them don't like love to be there. Like you're not having a ton of company pride being a security guard for the White Sox, I would imagine. It was like when I was working at a deli for Mariano's, I did the job. I'm trying to help people. You get the orders right, whatever, slicing salami and whatnot. But it's not like I had a ton of company pride. I'm not going around if someone was walking in with a Jewel Osco shirt and Mariano's had a no Jewel Osco shirt policy. I'm not going around trying to hey, button that shirt up. I don't really care. So the fact that the security guys are going out of their way to be telling them, hey, the owner doesn't like that, button it up. Because, there's been a lot of these sell the team signs. There's a lot of these unhappy fans. And there's plenty of shirts like this going around. What it screams to me is Jerry is making a point to tell these guys. Because I don't think they're going out of the way to do it. Like, I have pride for the White Sox, and I don't want to upset Jerry. No. I think Jerry sees all of this stuff going on. He sees the unhappy fans. He sees the unhappy sides, but he wants to live in his fantasy land. He doesn't want to see people unhappy when he goes to the ballpark. When he does show up at the ballpark, I hardly doubt he was even in the box the other night when the security people told him that. But this reeks of me. Like, they're telling these guys very specific instructions. They're putting the hammer down, and that's why they're following. Because, like, I don't think these security people are going out on their own to try and prevent hurting Jerry's feelings. I think Jerry's instructing all these people to do it. You think the security guards have a ton of company pride in the White Sox? No. They're being told to do all this shit. And it makes me, it is sickening. It is sickening. And especially that shirt, I don't like our team. The team has 100 losses before September. Who would like the team? Like, how are you going to sit there, put this horrible product on the field, lie to the fan base? I want a quick turnaround. That's why we hired Chris Getz and didn't do our due diligence and hire any external candidates. We wanted a quick turnaround. He knows the organization. We're not doing another rebuild. Well, this looks an awful lot like a rebuild to me, except with a worse product on the field. At least in the first rebuild, when we had to go through all those crap years, Ricky's teams were fun. They hustled. Yolmer Sanchez is dumping Gatorade on people. Those were fun teams to watch. I didn't mind going to the ballpark then. Now it's like, man, it's brutal. It's brutal. As Andy put it here, yeah, this what Jerry promised a steak and fed us raccoon meat. And now he's acting upset that we don't want to eat it. Yeah, I could have said it better. Yeah, that is well put. Well put. I mean, that's ridiculous. Button up your jersey so we can't see, like, I don't like our team shirt. I get maybe taking a sell the team banner. Because a big banner hanging over, okay, fine. A lot of stadiums do that. I still think it's ridiculous that they had the guy trying to pry it out of his hands. Which, like, the fact that he was willing to do that, that just goes to show, like, they're clearly getting instructions to do all of this. Like, it's coming down from the top, and they're being very strict about it. Like, why else would you make an ass of yourself or intentionally do that? Who wants to, like, the fact that they even have fans that want to show up, like, God bless them. God bless you if you want to show. I mean, I don't blame you either. I mean, I love watching baseball during the summer too, but man, like, if you should just be happy people want to come to the ballpark, and now you're kind of dictate clothing policy. Like, how can you expect people to be happy? And if you're Jerry too, and it's almost too late now, but like, what's in it for you at this point? Like, you're going to die. One of the most hated men in Chicago is going to be like Jerry Krause all over again for ruining the Bulls. I mean, you lucked in, like, let's look at his history owning the Bulls. You know, you lucked into Jordan. You lucked into Derrick Rose. Outside of that, not a whole lot of success under his watch. But same with the White Sox. Like, 2005, as great as that team was, one of the better postseason teams, great pitching staff. But let's be honest, they got hot at the right time. They couldn't replicate that success. They didn't even make the playoffs again the next year. Now, they had a good team 2006, but, you know, let's be honest, he's kind of gotten lucky twice. So now you're not putting in any effort. You're making all these fans miserable. You're threatening to move the team once. Like, what's in it for you at this point? Don't you want to go out on a high note? Either sell a team or give a shit. Like, you want this to be how you remember your lasting legacy after a lifetime of work and being a successful businessman and buying these teams, you know. This is how you want to go out being remembered. I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it. He deserves the bulk of the blame, obviously. As much as we're piling on Getz for all of his bad offseason moves, it's not his fault he got hired. It's Jerry's fault. He's doing the best he can. So, I mean, it's yeah. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? On the actual baseball field, if people are still watching or care, I'm trying to stay plugged into this team. I do love the White Sox. Unfortunately, it's a curse. I am still watching the games. Kai Busch was sent down earlier this week. That one wasn't too upset about. I thought that was a good stint in the majors for Kai Busch. A little good, a little bad, bit of a roller coaster. He did have a quality start against the Astros. He had that impressive 4 where he went 4 innings. He walked 7 batters. He gave up 6 hits against that loaded Yankee lineup, and he only allowed 2 runs. So, I mean, that was pretty impressive. Then to come back the next outing against the Astros, he throws a quality start. That was positive. His first start against Oakland, a little bit of control struggles. But I thought that was a nice, hey, let's get this guy a taste of Major League Baseball. See what you need to work on. Go down to the minors, try to apply it. So that was one where, okay, I actually like the fact that they did send it out. Let's give some other guys a little bit of an opportunity here. Davis Martin's looked really good since coming back. But with Kai Busch, I found it interesting, like, looking at it. Because I was like, man, like, it seemed like he really struggled with command. But he was able to minimize damage despite a lot of these free passes. Now, obviously, you can't make a living off of working out of traffic as a starter every inning. But and his stuff wasn't all that impressive either, because like he had that low 90s fastball where if you didn't locate it, and we talked about this with Drew Thorpe too, there's not a ton of margin for error, but I saw he showed pretty good poise considering he was getting his first taste of MLB action. He was constantly in these stressful situations. So that was positive. That was encouraging. But I was like, I wonder if he had all these control issues. Has this always been a thing in his minor league career? I was looking at it when he was with the Angels, and even before last season, he had pretty good control. It was respectable. His first his first 115 innings pitched, and 103 of those innings came in Double-A. He only walked 34 batters. I mean, that's respectable. Then he had a shoulder injury, and he kind of came back because he was thrown out of this like 3/4 arm slot. I was reading, and after he got back from that injury off the IL, the control just kind of took a nosedive. It's been a little bit more of an issue ever since. And when he was initially drafted, he was kind of thrown in the mid 90s. Now he's thrown in the low 90s, so he lost a little bit on his fastball too. So I think that injury did a little bit of damage there. The big key for him, and he did incorporate this his last start against Detroit. He started throwing that curveball a little bit more. He was mostly, he's throwing his fastball 51% of the time in his major league stint. His slider is his best pitch. He's throwing fastball majority of the time. Slider about 24% of the time. The slider did have some success for him. A lot of strikeouts he did end up getting came off of that slider. But I feel like if your fastball is in the low 90s, that through incorporating that changeup, giving just another wrinkle to keep hitters off balance, that's going to help. Same with the changeup too. He starts throwing those more and he becomes a true 4-pitch pitcher. I do think there's a path for him to be a mid-level starter for the White Sox. I wasn't completely discouraged by that, but it's just you got to clean up the control. I think having that curveball will help because in that start against the Tigers, while he only walked one guy, it was another thing where control is an issue because he kept getting behind in counts. He was in a lot of very hitter-friendly counts, a lot of 3-1 counts. They're going to make you pay, especially if you have to groove a fastball down the middle and you're only throwing like 91. Major league hitters, they're going to eat that up. So that was an interesting development to watch. Davis Martin's been a pleasant surprise. I thought he was pretty good last year before he got on the IL, but he's kind of showing that early on, hey, I could be a decent starter here too. Starting pitching overall, as bad as this team's been, you wouldn't it's been better than the record would indicate. So there are some positive developments to watch. Drew Thorpe's going to be interesting the rest of the year. He kind of got knocked around his last start, but I'll give Grady a little bit of credit here because clearly the guys like him. They were walking around the other day before the game wearing Grady Sizemore shirts, so clearly he's got their support, and it doesn't look like they've quit. I will give them that. They are still going out there and they are still playing hard. And at this point, that's all I can ask for. I really don't want to get that record. We talked about it last week, but they needed last week, they needed to win 13 games. Going through the schedule, I predicted they were only going to win 11. They were going to break that record. Since last week, they've won one game, and that came against the Giants. And that was a series where I was like, I think they're probably going to get swept here. They ended up winning a game there, and then they got swept against Detroit, where I thought they're going to. So about where we thought. They do have Oakland coming to town in a couple weeks, so that could help. Although, I mean, when they were in Oakland, they did lose 2 or 3 there. So, I mean, they're outgunned most of these nights coming to the ballpark. We got Texas coming up. We got 2 games today, doubleheader, and then we got the Mets, then Baltimore, then Boston. So the tough stretch of games. Oh, and then Cleveland right after that. So tough 5 stretch of games. Not looking great. Probably going to get worse before it gets better. But God bless all of you that are still hanging in there and watching this team. Keep wearing your Sell the Team shirts. Keep trying to bring those banners in. Hopefully, the owner is in the box, so he does see it. The owner's in the box, doesn't want to see them. Too bad. Make them see them. Let them know we're unhappy. It's the only way change is going to happen. I don't even know if that'll still work, but couldn't hurt. Let security try and take it. They want to be the asshole? Fine. Actually, before we wrap up here, I did want to mention this too. Interesting development here. A fan is suing the team and the Illinois Sports Authority, who owns Guaranteed Rate Field, over the shooting incident last year. The Sports Mockery had a pretty big role in this. Our guy Aldo Soto he got 2 sources pretty good sources too, come out and be like, hey, this is what we think happened. This came from multiple different sources, that a woman tried to sneak a gun in the stadium, hiding in her belly fat. It triggered the detector, the metal detector, 3 separate times. Now, one of the sources said the third time, security was like, we don't know what it is. We don't want to overstep our bounds. So they let her in. While she was in the stands, the gun accidentally went off, hit another fan that she was with. There was a 26-year-old woman and a woman in her 40s. I believe they were together. Gun accidentally goes off. Woman gets hit in the leg. Woman that the gun in her stomach. There's an abrasion from a gun boot on her chest. So this one source told us, this is all from last year, that a third person, before medical attention could arrive, took the gun, ran off. So when medical people are checking them out, they see the one woman with a wound on her stomach, the other one shot in the leg on accident. They don't know where the gun is. So the White Sox immediately came out. Shot came from outside the stadium. Well, that hasn't been confirmed yet either. It's more than likely it didn't happen. And then sure enough, a couple days later, Peggy Kaczynski comes on ESPN 1000, essentially confirms what Aldo had reported for Sports Mockery. Now you flash forward a year later, one of those 2 women, she was in the lawsuit named Jane Doe, so we don't know which one exactly it was, but she's suing the team for negligence. Now I think this woman's full of shit, especially if that report is true that she snuck the gun in and she's trying to sue the team, but I hope she wins. I hope she does win. Because the White Sox came out and were trying to say, this came from outside the stadium. No, it did. There's no excuse. No excuse for having a gun inside the stadium, which it's allegedly, they haven't proven anything yet. They haven't, the Chicago Police Department hasn't come out and officially settled this investigation. They are still investigating, so this is all allegedly, but there's no excuse for having a gun in the stadium. And it's pretty sure, I find it very hard to believe that shot came from outside the stadium. So I hope they sue the White Sox. He did sue the White Sox. I hope they win. I do hope they win. I think they will win because there's no excuse for that happening. Yet another lapse from Jerry Reinsdorf and his crappy organizations. We got Sports Genius in the comments. They should have settled this out of court. Yeah, they probably should have, but White Sox, I probably think they can win. Usually in lawsuits like this, a lot of them are spearheaded by these insurance companies where they think they can get some money off of it. Like they're the ones that do it. And then the other insurance companies, they'll get together and they'll settle out. So the fact that most of the time, the fact that they are getting sued and it might go to court, it's pretty telling because they think they got a pretty strong case. The White Sox don't want to pay it. They don't want to settle because that would be an admission to guilt, I guess. We'll see. Going to be interesting. If it is the same woman, though, that allegedly snuck the gun in, I do find it hysterical that you sneak a gun in, accidentally let it go off, and then sue the team for negligence. That would be the ultimate heist, but deservedly so. Screw the Whites. I mean, they deserve it. They deserve it. So another comical thing to keep track of outside of the field. There was a report that came out that that 78, where the new stadium is going to be built, they have started constructing a baseball diamond on that location. So White Sox haven't officially been moving, but the renderings came out where they want to move Guaranteed Rate Field. So another thing to watch. They are starting to build. It looks like a baseball diamond kind of going up around that 78 lots. If you're in Chicago, go around, check it out. I'm not lying. Baseball diamond right there. We'll see you next week. I'm sure there'll be some more White Sox bumbling and incompetence to talk about. They never seem to fail. You would think with a 100-loss team before September, be running out of things to talk about at this point in the season. But the White Sox never cease to amaze, just doing stupid stuff and playing bad baseball. That's all we have for you. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week at noon.